Welcome to the Dirty Side of Leadership podcast with Ron and Kristin, where leadership meets entertainment. This podcast features stories with names and certain aspects that have been changed to keep submissions private. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to the Dirty Side of Leadership podcast, where leadership meets entertainment. I'm Kristin, and I'm joined by a man who needs no introduction, or at least he didn't write one for himself. Ron Ward. Ron, you okay? You didn't write an inflated introduction today.
I'm great, but I am working on being more humble in 2025. So that's one of my goals.
Well, good luck with that, sir.
So many people, Kristin, set goals, especially in January of a new year, but they fail to evaluate the year before. So we are going to help put all of this in perspective.
Yeah. And I know I'm guilty of that as well. You're always looking forward, which generally is a great thing to do, but you do need to learn from mistakes, but you also need to learn from wins that you've successfully achieved. So let's start with evidence-based practices, because that's really what today's episode is based around, also known as EBP. And it's defined by the Oxford Review as a process where a systematic process where actions or activities are undertaken using the best evidence available. So to be effective, EBP helps eliminate subjective opinions and relies merely on facts. And wow, what a concept.
Yeah, no kidding. You know, it started back in the medical community, and that's how surgeries improved. That's how medicines came about, because they would test data, they would test with patients. All these things happened. So that's where it originated from. And it sounds simple enough, but it doesn't appear that most people go into the new year with starting by evaluating the previous year. And I've been guilty myself. So here's an example. Let's say someone wants to improve sleep in 2025, but they eat late at night.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe they alternate their bedtime, and they don't really look at that, and they're just setting this new goal for 2025. But if they realize what was preventing sleep, maybe it's alcohol, maybe it's something else.
Yeah.
But you got to look at what prevented you from sleeping well and try something new. And we use the word try, and we'll explain that as we go through this.
Yeah. No, that is spot on. And actually, it's funny. My kids like to have kid time from like 9 to 10, where my husband and I go upstairs, hang out, watch what we want to watch, and the kids hang out. But the first thing I hear are they're pulling out bowls to eat cereal. and then they're up later than they should be, right? And that's because their digestive system is now having to work late at night. So I cut them off. I'm like, stop eating after 8, right? And the whole point is to help with sleep. So we have to look at what we're doing to make changes. So when setting new goals, we have to consider what worked well and what didn't work with the last goals. I want them to have that kid time that they love, and that will help build this relationship to where when they're in their 20s, 30s, 40s and older, that they still are very, very close. So I think it's important they have that time. But let's cut out what's keeping them up later than they should be.
Yeah. It's funny you said that. When I retired, I told you that I struggled, and I started, and I changed my diet because I didn't have to be live at 6:30 in the morning.
Right.
So I began to eat later at night, and I was having trouble sleeping, and I had to go back and evaluate what's going on with me. And another thing, if you're listening, you do have trouble sleep, you got to wear yourself out, wear your body out. That's a side note, absolutely free, but workouts will really help with sleep for sure.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Kristin, something happened to me recently. You and I have been very open about organization. I took, when I was studying for my master's degree, I took this exam, and I was like 95% leader and 5% manager. And usually you have to manage to move up in a company.
Right.
So I had to really work on processes. So I thought I was doing pretty good because I have a centralized calendar. But we ended up with a coaching contract and had about 30 people. I'm planning this conference that we had. And what I didn't account for, I thought I will just put these people in order in my calendar.
Yeah.
Because the good thing about Zoom is if I put it on Eastern time, it'll show them their time. The problem was when I had people have to cancel or
Ooh, yeah.
change. I didn't know Texas had a 2 hour. They got mountain time, so there's 1 hour and 2 hour. I was dealing with 3 different time
Oh,
zones, including mine.
right. I forgot about that.
Yeah. So when people would talk or they would suggest a time, it really got complicated and screwed up. So I
Oof.
had to literally take a piece of paper and just redo everything that I should have done from the beginning, or at least done it online. So what I've
Yeah.
done, just in case that happens again, I've just developed a new system, and I did seek some guidance from someone that's extremely organized and very analytical, and I'm not. So that is an example of a day-to-day practice
Yeah.
of evidence-based practices that you can implement. I had to look at the mistakes that I made previously to improve for the future.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I could see how that could get really hairy really quickly, right? Not, especially with the different time zones in one state. With me, I've struggled with organization. I've been open about that. And with homeschooling, like that's a whole different level of organization, because you don't have somebody necessarily saying, I mean, we're part of a program, so we do show up once a week and we have to have everything ready, and it does keep you honest throughout the week. But that said, when, let's say, my goal is to go from 9 a.m. to 1 in the afternoon and be done for the day, because in homeschooling it's condensed, right? And what happens is I give us a little too much leeway. And so before you know it, we've gone on a nature walk in the morning, and then we had lunch, and I'm like, wow, we haven't even started schoolwork yet. So I'm really working on, year over year, I'm getting better. We're on year 3 right now. I'm working on getting more organized with our homeschool schedule and treating it a little bit more like what you would treat like if you were going to public school and you have your 9 a.m. start time, right? So it's been something that I've had to evaluate what worked, what didn't work, and make some changes. And so I continue to see improvements in how effective we are and time management, but it's a constant reevaluation process to see what's working and what we need to tweak.
It's interesting you said that, because you had flexibility, and that's what happened to me when I
Yeah.
retired.
Yes.
I had the authority to change the rules when I should have been embracing my own rules. I should have set a rule, and I should have treated it just like it was, the government or
Yeah.
whatever. And that's what happens, is our personal freedom and our desire for comfort keeps us from being disciplined enough to implement new
Yeah.
practices. So no matter what we talk about here, and we're going to get into some stuff, you have to commit to being disciplined enough to make these changes, or none of this will matter.
Right.
And Kristin, as we were putting this together, I believe all individuals, entrepreneurs, businesses should conduct an evidence-based gap analysis. I know that sounds technical, but a gap analysis considers resources, talent, marketing, processes, and anything else that's applicable. So you're not just going back and looking, okay, I did this wrong, but who were your influences? Or did you have data? Did you have anything to support what you were doing? And if not, then you
Right.
need to get that.
Yeah.
We can't find a solution if we don't understand the problem.
Exactly. I'm going to interject something, and
Okay.
this is this is on topic, but it's going to make some maybe smirk a little bit. But I do a good gap analysis with what I have, as far as what I have on hand in my food pantry. Like this, I want to know that I can go for a week and make all these meals without having to run to the grocery store. So literally I go and pull all these recipes. I know this sounds kind of crazy. Maybe I'm craving that that data aspect that I used to be so heavily into. But I pull up, let's say, 7 different recipes, and I say, based on the ingredients I have here in my house, can I make all of these without having to go to the grocery store? And recently I found that I didn't have any, diced tomatoes, canned tomatoes, tomato paste, right? And it sounds silly, but it actually, when you're going through your day and you want to start making dinner, you don't have these things, and now you're having to run to the grocery store. That's a little bit of a chaos aspect that I don't want. And so I try to find gaps in my household and bridge them. So you can do that in any realm, really.
Yeah, this literally applies to all facets of
Yeah.
life. But I am going to give you a business example. I had a friend who was in sales, and during the summer months, sales would always decline. So he began to look at data. He knew the exact months when sales declined. So he decided, okay, I'm just going to buy more ads. So he bought more ads, and this was probably, I don't know, this was back 2018. And so he buys more ads. Sales did not improve at all. He tried several other marketing techniques and strategies, and an email, a mass email was sent out. Nothing helped. So what he did instead was, after he had the data from all these years, is he reduced his ad budget for those 3 months. And even though he didn't sell as much, he didn't spend as much, and he came out okay. So even though it doesn't sound like a win, it really was. And the reality is, people are on vacation and people are doing things in the summer, and sales declined. And I don't think there was anything you could do to change that. So you embrace what's going on, and then you work around that. And that's also an evidence-based approach. And he did it through a gap analysis.
I love that. And I know I talked about this a little bit throughout the summer, but church attendance generally just goes down in the summer. People are on vacation. The weather's, at least here, the weather's finally nice. And so people are out taking advantage of it. And something that really drove me nuts was, if I was in charge at the church, I would have brought it down to just one service. And there's 2 services. And so they were running short on volunteers, and the services didn't have very many people in them, which can make it appear that you are failing in some respects about having parishioners, right? So anyways, there can be gaps that you need to analyze, even, like I'm saying, even in church, right? Like what can you do about that? Well, you could bring it down to one service. So we need to be performing these gap analysis everywhere.
Yeah, we really do. And I think what I hear you saying is, we hope Jesus don't come back in July. Is that what you're saying?
I know. I was like, this place, and I go into a business, or even at church, anything I'm invested in. And for some reason, I just take like a personal, it just feels personal when I'm in church and there's like a third of the seats filled. It bothers me, and I just want to fix it. Well, I don't know what that's about.
I think these 2 examples are relatable, because initially my friend felt it was a failure. Like, I'm just embracing that I'm going to sell less units during these 3-month period. And I'm sure the church feels the same way. Like, oh, we're giving ground if we do this, when in fact, embracing reality is part of evidence-based practices. And I think you're right on that, Kristin, but we can't always change everything. But it sounds like that's a reasonable answer to the situation.
Right. Yeah, I was so tempted to talk to the pastor, but I'm like, you can't go to church once a month and then give your opinion. So at least I know my position.
Yeah. Let's personalize this.
Yes.
If you're listening, I want you to ask yourself, are you satisfied with 2024? Did you accomplish the goals you set last January? Did you even set goals? Did you invest in your health? Are your relationships stronger? Did your financial situation improve? I believe we should have more resources and more finances each year. I believe that. And if you ask those honest questions and it did not improve, then you need that gap analysis. You need to apply evidence-based practices. And something that I've found, and this is a little odd, Kristin, but you can probably relate, is I get angry about a situation, and then I turn that into passion, and I make a difference. And I've lived my life that way. I've told the funny story about Howdy Doody beating me in that karate tournament. And I took that anger and I put it into training. And, I wasn't going to get beat again. So we have to develop something, has to ignite your passion. Maybe it's your ability to care for something, but you have to do something to change what you did in 2024.
Right. I mean, what comes to mind for me is I'm a lot like you in a sense where, where, let's say back in 2020, when we had all of the riots here in Portland, I went to this police wives dinner, and we were, this is in the midst of everything. So most of the wives were literally like crying and talking about their experiences. That is not generally how my body reacts or my mind. I get angry about something and I do something about it. So for me, I started speaking out, right? Like, so instead of going there with a helpless feeling, which was generally what most of the women came across as, like, this helpless, we're out of control, everything's happening to us. I had done the mindset switch already and gotten activated. And so for me, I felt in control because I was doing something to change the trajectory. So I'm very similar in that way, Ron, where I get angry and then I put a plan in place and activate. And I think and that passion that you talk about, that's what you have to do versus just feel like things are happening to you.
It's exactly right. Passion and discipline has to come into play or you'll never make the real changes.
Exactly. And if you're serious about improvement, you must set aside time to evaluate 2024 and set new goals for 25 and use that evidence-based approach that can significantly enhance decision-making and performance in various fields. We're talking leadership, training, organizational development. And then as we move beyond 2024, there are several key strategies and trends that can be leveraged to ensure better outcomes in 2025. So you got to use them.
Yeah, you really do. Okay, this part where just get out your pen, unless you're driving, and write a few of these down. We'll zip through them pretty quickly, but these are so important.
Yeah.
So here's some ways to implement EBP. You can utilize quantitative or qualitative data to make informed decisions. This involves collecting relevant data, analyzing it, making informed choices based on the evidence, investing in data analytic tools. You know, Kristin, you at the conference talked about ways to enhance your social media. If people are using social media to make sales or influence people, then you got to look at those analytical tools and see what's working, because there's algorithms or all these things that can really thwart. And I will say this, Kristin, that I'm evaluating my social media activities from 2024 because frankly, I don't want to waste time. I have a purpose.
Right.
And if no one's seeing it, it doesn't matter. So that's one way that people, do the same thing over and over and think they're all of a sudden going to get this windfall of followers. And it doesn't happen that way.
Right.
So another thing that can be very helpful is keeping a journal. That way you can look back in March, what was I doing? Did I see improvement into April or May or June? So keeping a journal will really help you. And we're going to explain why as we move forward.
Yeah, it really can. And continuous learning, that's something to jot down. You want to foster this culture of continuous learning, both personally and within your organization, right? So you want to encourage people on your team to stay updated with the latest research, trends, best practices. Ron, you just talked about social media. All of that data, if you're an entrepreneur, you should be using social media. It's all there. You want to look at what resonated with people. When are your people online, right? There's so much. So you want to be paying laser attention to that, laser focus there, because like Ron's saying, I remember having someone coach me when I first got in the social media game. I was posting, let's say 10 p.m. Pacific, and he was in Florida, and he's like, hey, just so you know, you need to be mindful. He was like a supporter of mine, but he was giving me really good feedback. He's like, I'm in Florida. Your stuff is being lost on anyone on the East Coast. He's like, you're posting at 10 p.m. Pacific. We're not going to see it over here unless we have sleep problems, right? So he was really trying to help me figure out best posting times. And it was good feedback because I was just throwing stuff out there. That was that passion, right? That I was just throwing it out there and not being really mindful about when and where. So all of that is very important to pay attention to. And that can include also, let's go back to, attending workshops, webinars, conferences. We just had a conference. As well as engaging in peer-to-peer learning. I can't say enough about that peer-to-peer learning. If there's someone out there within your organization that you feel slightly jealous of or envious of, or you feel like maybe they're the brown noser, see what they're doing. Observe them for a day. Invite them to coffee. Pick their brain. Humble yourself and do that.
Exactly
I've done that.
Right. Yeah. And I mentioned journaling, and here's where this ties in. We need to use feedback loops. And that's you implement structured feedback loops where either employees, you can do your own mental processes, but if you're a manager, your employees can share their experiences. And as you regularly gather feedback, it allows you to adapt and refine those processes. And it does the same thing. You look back at your personal journal and you can improve, but you have got to have feedback. That's why I emphasize so much when I do training is that move from manager to coach. You're coaching, you're developing a culture of feedback. And that way you've got your hand on the pulse, you know what's going on, and you can do the improvements as you go, or you can drop the things that you don't need.
I like that. There's also pilot programs. And before fully implementing, I mean, all big companies do this. Before you fully implement a new strategy or a new program, you want to conduct test pilots, right, to evaluate the effectiveness. And this is going to help identify any potential challenges. And then you can adjust your approach based on the results, observed in this pilot phase. So that's something that shouldn't be new to most, but maybe doing it personally is new. And you can absolutely do that. There's nothing holding you back from doing that in your personal life or within your organization.
No, that's exactly right. The next one is collaborate with experts. And what I mean by that is find someone who's really thriving and see if you can take them to coffee. There's an old saying, if you want to be a millionaire, take a millionaire to lunch. And don't expect them to pay for it because they're a millionaire. You pay for it. And you pick their brain. And here's a beautiful thing about that. I know of someone who did this, and it created a bond. And next thing you know, the millionaire's helping them get work. So that was not the intended outcome, but it was better than expected. So you do need to collaborate. And you would be surprised how many people actually enjoy sharing their expertise. They enjoy giving you some information. So I had a call this week, Kristin, where someone wanted to get in the federal system and wanted to pick my brain. And it was a little difficult because I was busy, but I picked the time and I enjoyed the conversation, and I hope it helped.
That's awesome. Yeah, it is. It's that pay it forward that I think is huge. And we might see it like, I'm so glad that you were able to find the time because, at the surface level, we see it as, man, it's a bit of a time suck. It's we're days before the holidays here, or, we have New Year's coming right up. Like it's all of these things, but you gain so much from it. You're going to gain as an individual when you're sharing your expertise. You're going to gain at least as much, or if not more, from sharing that with someone. It really does something for you. But I want to talk about emotional intelligence and really the emphasis that should be on that. We had an episode. Oh, was it? Oh no, it was like emotional intelligence. Then we also talked about. Oh goodness, all I know is it was really popular.
Adaptation. We used AQ, EQ, IQ.
Oh yeah,
we did it all.
IQ versus EQ. Yeah, that was a. I've had people tell me that was one of their favorites. But so talking about emotional intelligence, that can apply in leadership, in training. You want to integrate that EI like an evidence-based approach, right? Evidence-based practice, and that can lead to better team dynamics, improved communication naturally, and then enhanced overall performance. And when you understand and you're able to manage emotions, that can significantly impact workplace culture and employee satisfaction. I used to always do, anytime I hired somebody, within their first few days of working for me, I had them take it was a test, and I don't know if it's the Strengths Finder test. And I would have them take that, and it would tell me what their top 5 strengths are. And it was wild because I had a few people that within their top 5, it was empathy. So it drastically changed the way I was going to approach the conversation. If it was coaching, even just feedback, or even praise, right? Like everyone is so different. And so by doing that, you have this intel and you have a little peek into their mind that you wouldn't have otherwise. And I really do feel like it made it so much more harmonious on the team.
No, that's good stuff. Really good stuff. The next one, and we're almost finished, folks. Hang with us. This is so important, is technology integration. You want to leverage technology to gather and analyze data more efficiently. Tools such as learning management systems, LMS, customer relationship management, CRM systems, they can help you track and perform metrics and streamline processes. And even on an individual level, we talked about analytics with social media. There's technologies that will help you with fitness and diet. And, I know people that watch YouTube videos, and they it's like they have community while they're working out, and it helps a great deal. So take advantage of all the technology that we have out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know we should do a whole episode on AI. And I know we did one AI, what, friend or foe. That was one way to look at it. But also we had, was it Zach? I can't remember his last name, at the conference.
Yeah.
And he
Yes.
talked all about like the chat GPTs, and I mean there's so many out there.
Yeah. Zach
But
Giglio. Yes.
Giglio, yes. And so I was, okay, I don't know if you noticed this when I introduced him. I was so nervous that I was going to say gigolo on accident that I went, Zach, Zach, there you are. Right. And I avoided his last name because it was like this mental hang up that I was going to say it wrong. And there's no coming back from that. So
No, probably
he
not.
didn't mind me omitting his last name. But anyhow, that chat GPT, oh my gosh. And the competitors, I don't know if you have any of those off the top of your mind. I don't. But there's some great stuff out there that I feel like not enough people realize that it can help you in so many realms of life. And I will tell you, I'm just gonna put this out there. I have used it for some of my students when I need to give feedback that will resonate with an eighth grader. I say, I am writing feedback based on, you have to be pretty specific. Let's say the solar system rendering. This is for an eighth grader who is confident in this area but lacks confidence, and they will just give you the perfect thing to write, and it's written for an eighth grader anyhow. So I'm a big fan, and you can adjust as needed, but we need to make sure that we are using the tools that are available to us.
Yeah. And Kristen, I'm going to talk more about this later, but we are actually launching Forward Media Company in January.
Yes.
And we have been doing exactly what we're talking about. We've been taking an evidence-based approach to AI. We can literally take someone's voice and type up and have them do a presentation, and it's not even them. We want to be ethical when we do this, but there's so many things that AI can do in a positive way. So
absolutely. I don't want to forget to talk about SMART goals. I think that's really important, and that is something that most people should be familiar with. But that's setting clear goals and metrics. And when you do that, you want to establish specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. That's that SMART. And these goals need to align with these evidence-based practices. And when you use these metrics to assess your progress and make necessary adjustments along the way, you're bound to be successful.
Very true. We've said this many times, diversify your network, find the right people with the right expertise. I want to say my big saying one more time, put your aces in spaces, your jacks in cracks.
Yes.
There are people that will help you reach your goals. You got to be open up and find them. Don't surround yourself with people just like you all the time.
Yes. I just talked about that, didn't I, Ron, about even just like your friend group.
Yep.
Right? Like my friends are very different than I am. I would say baseline, we have a lot in common. But when it comes to personalities, how boring if they were just like me, right? Like that would just be so boring. So, and so many people do that. They have the mini me's, especially in the workplace. You don't want to do that. I can't echo that enough. And let me see here. Let me touch on just another one here. You want to regularly review and adjust what you have going on. So regularly schedule reviews of your practices and outcomes. This isn't something you put together in January of 25 and leave it, and then you're reviewing in November of 25, right?
Exactly.
No, you can't just set it and forget it. This is going to take regular check-ins. You can do monthly in the beginning, and then maybe once you have have an understanding of what it's like, go to quarterly. But you absolutely have to check in and see how you're doing with outcomes.
Yeah. And okay, we're coming to a close, but please hear me out. If you integrate these evidence-based practices from 2024, you can lay a strong foundation to go in and exceed in 2025. I'm fighting off those funny cliches like thrive in 2025, come alive. I had a bunch of those that I started to mess with, Kristen, and put in here.
I'm so glad you didn't. Thank you.
But anyway, emphasize data, collaboration, continuous learning, adaptability. We mentioned that slightly. And when you fail, get back up and start again. Failure is only temporary, and failure is long lasting if you allow it to be. That's the only way. So get back on the horse.
Yes.
Empower leaders and do the things that we've talked about here. And we really believe you can reach those goals in 2025.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, if you want to be inspired, read about Thomas Edison. If you
No kidding.
failure, right? And if you want something more current, Elon Musk, but I just think Thomas Edison, look at what he achieved, and it's just absolutely incredible, and how much failure he was up against. But that didn't stop him. So pretty incredible story. So also, this is important. This is the last week to get your free Dirty Side of Leadership t-shirt. Here is how you get it. Go in, rate the podcast, screenshot the rating, and DM one of us on social. If you have our cell phone numbers, text us, right? And also provide the color that you would prefer, your t-shirt size, and your mailing address, and we'll get it off to you.
Wow. And those are such cool t-shirts.
I'm wearing one right now. I'm not even kidding. Under my blazer for those watching.
That's dedication, folks, right there. That's loyalty.
I actually, you know what? Because I did buy nice fabric, I actually will personally and do wear this in public.
Yeah. Guys, we really hope this is a great new year for you. We appreciate your support and coming on this journey with us. And we're just excited.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's been a great year. We're very thankful. And we will see you early in 2025. And we'll have another great episode to help you along your learning process and this journey that we call life.
That's right. Be the leader you're meant to be.
We'll see you next year.
The Dirty Side of Leadership podcast is brought to you by Forward Operations. If you'd like to book Ron or Kristin for speaking events, training, or executive coaching, visit forwardoperations.com. Be the leader you're meant to be.